today we're talking about simplifying rational expressions. So when a fraction has a polynomial in both the numerator and a denominator, it's called a rational expression. So remember, just a fast reminder, your excluded values are the values that make your denominators equal to 0. So some of the questions might say like, simplify this radical expression and state the excluded values. So once you find once you simplify your expression, don't forget to find your excluded values, which means you just take your denominator, set it to equal, and solve, okay? So just like any fraction, if you have the same thing in your numerator as in your denominator, those just cancel out, because remember, if you had like 4 over 4, that becomes 1. So same thing, if you had x plus 2 over x plus 2, it's the exact same thing, right? And that just becomes 1. So you can just cancel those out. So what we're going to do today is we're going to have polynomials in both the numerator and the denominator, and our job is to be able to cancel them out after we factor them. So if they say to find the 0, we're going to set the equation equal to 0 and solve just like we have been before. So let's look at the first example here. We have n plus 3 over n squared plus 10n plus 21. So what we're going to do is see that denominator can be factored. So I'm going to leave the numerator as it is. And then I'm just going to factor this down. So remember, when we factor, we find the factors of 21, or C, and the factors of 21 are like 7 and 3. And then we're looking at this and we're like, oh, okay, 7 and 3. The product of them gives me 21, and the sum of them gives me 10. Excellent. So remember, I'm going to have n in one quantity and n in the other. Now remember, because it's a plus sign, we're going to have the same sign, and they are both going to be adding. So I'm going to have n plus and n plus. Therefore, it doesn't matter which order they go in. So the 7 could go here, or the 3 could go in here. But I'm going to put it this way. Now, as we're looking at this, we're like, oh, okay. So I see I have one quantity in the numerator that's the same as in the denominator. So what I'm going to be able to do is cancel those out. And now what I'm left with, well, anytime these cancel out, they become 1. So I'm going to have 1 over the quantity n plus 7. And that is going to be my solution. Okay, let's go to the next problem. Okay, so with number 2, I'm going to go ahead and factor the numerator, which is 12. I'm going to factor these out because 12 is the greatest common factor between 12x and 36. Boom. Does that make sense how we did that? Remember, when we factor it out, we divide each term by the greatest common factor, which is 12. So 12x divided by 12 is just x, and 36 divided by 12 is 3. So now we're going to factor the denominator. Again, I'm looking for factors of 12. 4 and 3, you could say 6 and 2. But again, I'm looking for a negative 1 right here. So what I'm going to do there is I'm going to say, okay, well, because this is a negative 12, one of these has to be a negative, right? And if I'm trying to get a negative 1, probably going to look here for the sum, because negative 3 plus 4 is a positive 1 rather than a negative. So I know I'm going to have x minus an x. Okay. Now, because this is a subtraction sign, I'm going to have one positive and one negative. Again, I'm putting the negative 4 in the subtracting one and the positive 3 in the other. Now, again, these can cancel, and so I'm left with 12 over x minus 4. Ta-da! Okay. So next is find the 0. So we're going to do the exact same process, but now this is just going to be set equal to 0. So I'm not going to worry about the 0 just yet. I'm going to go ahead and factor this over here. So I'm going to look at my numerator, and I'm going to start factoring that. So I'm going to say again, the factors of 8, they give me 6, are 4 and 2. So I'm going to have an x, because this is a positive, they're both going to be a positive. Then I'm going to substitute 4 and 2 in. I'm going to do my denominator now. Again, I'm going to say, because there is a subtraction sign, I'm going to have one positive, 1 negative. And because I'm trying to get a positive 1, that 2 is going to be a positive 2 and a minus 1, okay? So now what I'm going to do, cancel those out. So now I'm going to substitute a 0 in here. Okay, so now what's going to happen is I'm going to take both of these and I'm just going to say, okay, so how could I solve this now? What could I do, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, okay, well, if I took this 0, how do I solve for x? Well, I'm going to have to multiply this by x minus 1, this by x minus 1, right? These cancel. And these, anytime we have anything like this, 0 times anything is just 0. So I get 0 is equal to x plus 4. Then when I solve that, I get minus 4 minus 4. I'm at negative 4 is equal to x. And that is it. If you have any questions, come to tutoring, and I will see you guys then. Goodbye.